welcome back to this week's video. Today I am going to be doing my July wrap-up and my August TBR. If you are not versed in what these phrases mean, July wrap-up, basically I'm going to talk about the books that I read throughout the month of July, and then we're going to go into my August TBR, so the books that I plan on reading throughout the month of August, so my to be read for the month of August. And I will say that I didn't read an awful lot of books throughout the month of July, even though I spent a great amount of time reading. I just happened to choose books that were a lot thicker than your average book. Two of the books I read had over 800 pages, and they were a lot more detailed stories, so it took me a little bit longer to read them. But I will say that all of the books I read I did enjoy, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I'm going to start with my July wrap-up. So these are the books that I read throughout the month of July. The first book that I read was called Dragonfly in Amber, and that is written by Diana Gabaldon. It is the second book in the Outlander series, and once again, we are following the characters of Claire Fraser and Jamie Fraser, and this time we find that the setting has changed from Scotland to France. Once again, Jamie and Claire are being chased by the Redcoats, the British military, and they must escape Scotland over to France, and Jamie becomes kind of like the manager of his cousin's wine business in France. And I think Diana Gabaldon does a nice job playing out what happens, and you get invested into a lot of the characters. Of course, we've been following them since the first book, and so a lot of sad things happen, but it's a really great story. I will say that this was not my favorite book in the series so far. The book predominantly takes place in France, and I actually really didn't like this setting of the book. It wasn't that it was dry and boring, it's just, it took me a lot more to get into, and it was harder for me to pick up the book and read. I thought that the characters that were introduced weren't that interesting, minus like one character or one or two characters that were introduced in this book. But it just wasn't my favorite. I gave this a 3.5 stars out of 5 on Goodreads, and I was just excited to move on to the next book because the end of the second book was actually really good. Alright, the second book that I read in July was the third book in the Outlander series, and that is Voyager, also by Diana Gabaldon. And this so far has been my favorite book in the series. It's just like everything that you're waiting to happen from previous in book 2 comes to fruition and happens, and you find yourself just like squealing, and that's how I was when I read the book. And it coincides a lot with the ending of season 2 of the TV show that just happened, so it was really exciting for me to see the story from the book play out on the screen, and I definitely loved this book the most out of them that I've read so far. It is so good. It is so good. I don't even know what else to say. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I could not wait to pick up the next book, which I am currently reading at the moment. Books 3 and 4 that I read throughout the month of July are actually the first 2 books in a trilogy. That is the Infernal Devices trilogy by Cassandra Clare. So I read A Clockwork Angel and Clockwork Prince. And these books have been popping up all over Goodreads and all over YouTube for quite some time, and I thought, okay, I'll go ahead and give them a shot. I'll go ahead and try to read them, and I wasn't disappointed. I actually really enjoyed them and really liked them. When the first book, Clockwork Angel, you're introduced to the main character, Tessa, and she finds out that she has some secret abilities, and she is actually kidnapped while on the way to London to visit her brother, and a whole bunch of stuff happens, and you're also introduced to the 2 love interests of Tessa, that is Jem and Will. I thought that the dynamic between all of these characters was really good. It was really interesting. However, this book did have one flaw that really drove me nuts, and that was that a lot of the character names were quite silly, and I just couldn't get around that. I tried really hard, but it bugged me throughout the book and even into the second book, so this kind of brought down my rating for this book. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Again, it was the names that did it for me. I thought that a lot of them were really silly, and I just felt that it was kind of childish. I mean, I get that it's a young adult fiction novel, but I just couldn't get past the names, and that took away a star for me. The second book in the series was the fourth book that I read, and that is Clockwork Prince. So once again, we're following the main character Tessa and Jem and Will, and it's just a lot more is happening in this book. We find out that there has been a betrayal from the first book. Cassandra Clare goes into a lot more detail about this betrayal, and I would say that this book I actually liked a bit more than the first book, which generally doesn't happen. It's usually the second book has the second book slump. You know what they say, like the second books aren't always as good as the first books, but I found in this case for it to be reversed. So I really liked the second book more than the first book, and I'm super excited to read the third book, which is Clockwork Princess, and that you will find out is going to be one that I'm going to be reading very soon. So for Clockwork Prince, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars as well, just because, once again, the whole name thing bugged me, but I was able to get past it a little bit more, but it still took away a star for me. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about the books that I am planning on reading throughout the month of August. The first book is actually one that I started in July, but I am finishing it during the month of August, so it had to be put on this list, and that is The Drums of Autumn, which is the 4th book in the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon, and I am, once again, really enjoying it. We're still following the story of Claire and Jamie Fraser, and a lot has happened since the first book, like a lot. I feel like these books, they're so long and so detailed that it's like a lifetime you feel when you're reading them, but it makes them really good because you really do get invested in the characters, and a lot of exciting things happen, but also along with it being a long book, there's a lot of detail in the writing, and so Diana Gabaldon's writing style is really detailed and descriptive, and so like I said, it takes me quite a while to read these books. I would say like 3 weeks to a month it takes me to read these books when I could normally read a book in like 2 to 3 days. So these books have taken up a lot of my time this summer, but I'm really enjoying them. So the second book that I'm going to be reading throughout the month of July is The Fiery Cross, which is the 5th book in the Outlander series. Once again, we're still following the storylines of Jamie and Claire Fraser. They've added a couple more characters into the mix, which is super exciting. I'm not going to say their names because it actually is a spoiler and I don't want to ruin the books for anybody. But we find that their scenery has changed once again. There is another war brewing, and basically all hell is about to break loose like it does in every single book, and I'm just really excited to continue to read this storyline. I really have fallen in love with these characters, and that's what Diana Gabaldon does. Her writing is super descriptive and detailed, and she just sucks you into the story and makes you completely feel like these characters are friends and family, and I'm just really excited to see where she takes them and how the books play out. Alright, the next book that I plan on reading is Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. I talked about this book in my summer recommendation reads, and I said to myself, well, since you recommended it, you should actually probably read it, and it's actually been on my shelf for a long time. So like I said in my summer recommendation reads, this is sort of an autobiographical book based on Elizabeth Gilbert, the author. She finds herself in her mid-30s, she is married, she's successful, she has everything that she thought she would want, but it turns out that it isn't what she wants. So she ends up going through a divorce, and she leaves everything that she knows behind to travel the world. She finds herself in 3 different places, starting off in Italy, then she goes to India, and then ending her trip, she is in Bali. I'm really excited to read this book because, like I said, it's been on my shelf for a really long time. I think it's going to be a nice, quick, easy read. There are only 331 pages, so I should be able to devour this book. I'm really excited to do a review for you guys, so be on the lookout for that video. The next book is Beautiful Ruins by the author Jess Walter. This book I came across by accident. I was just browsing Goodreads one day and it kind of popped up in one of my recommendations. I read through the little synopsis and I was like, okay, that sounds like something I would really like to read. We follow this character who's a young innkeeper, and the beginning of the book takes place in the 1960s, I believe, and he works and lives on the Italian coastline until one day his world is changed when a young movie star actress comes in and he basically falls in love at first sight, I believe is what happened. Flash forward to the future and we find that this character goes from Italy to Hollywood to find this mysterious woman that came into his inn back in the 1960s. I'm really excited to read this book. I think it'll be a great book to help finish out the summer reads for me, and I will definitely do a review once I have finished the book, so go ahead and be on the lookout for that. Alright, the next book that I plan on reading is the final book in the Infernal Devices series, Clockwork Princess. Basically, you're just finding out kind of what happens to the main character Tessa and to the other characters. Will and Jem. We find out who she chooses in this like love triangle that's been happening. So I'm really excited to finish out the series. Once I finish the Infernal Devices, I am planning on reading the Mortal Instruments series because the Infernal Devices is supposed to be a prequel series to the Mortal Instruments, and I'm just excited to read them because everybody has been raving about them for years. There's even a TV show made about that. So yeah, I'm just excited to read this book that everyone's been talking about and to go ahead and finish another series on my list. The last book that I plan on reading throughout the month of August is a new series that I'm going to be starting. It is called the Raven series, and it is written by the author J.L. Wheel. The first book in the series is called White Raven, and I actually got this book for free on bookbub.com, and what's better than a free book? I mean, let's be honest. This cover of this book is so beautiful, and once I saw it, I was like, okay, I really have to read this book. And the first 3 lines of the synopsis on Goodreads definitely made me want to read it. This is what it says: "Deathful lies, unexpected love, impossible truth." So right away I was sucked in. I was like, okay, I have to see what the synopsis of this book is. So we follow the main character Piper as her and her younger brother TJ are sent off to live with their grandmother. And of course, in the normal fashion of a young adult paranormal fiction novel, there is a mysterious hunk that she spies and that I'm hoping that she'll fall in love with. Piper thinks that there's something supernatural about this boy whose name is Zane, and I'm just really interested to see like the dynamic between the two characters and to see how their character storyline plays out. Piper's past comes back to terrorize her, and she must do anything she can to figure out who is trying to kill her and to find the whole truth about her life and to see if everything that she has known about her life has been a lie. Basically, it's a girl who meets a mysterious boy and hopefully they fall in love, but then something dangerous tears them apart. You know, just the typical young adult themed novel, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a complete sucker for them. They pull me in every single time, and I'm really excited to read this book. Alright you guys, that is it. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I will hopefully be able to finish all of the books that I have set forth as my goal and be able to do reviews for them for you. If there's anything that you guys ever want reviewed, please leave a description down below or message me on Facebook, on YouTube. I'm on Twitter if you want to send me a message, Instagram. Basically, I'm all over social media. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget, pick up a book, immerse yourself, and I'll see you next time. Bye!